This is Talk with TAS, a radio experience hosted by Dr. Teresa A. Smith, a licensed counselor and professor focused on the transformative journeys of her guests and the lessons they've learned along the way. She's also an author, speaker, and nationally known social media personality. Join her now as she interviews newsmakers, artists, authors, and more. You will learn something new. This is Talk with TAS. Here's your host, Dr. Teresa A. Smith, also known as Dr. TAS.
Welcome today. Today I have with me Pastor Joanne Daniels. She is the senior pastor of Divine Grace Worship Center in Durham, North Carolina. She's an unusual woman, and I think that you're going to find out a lot about yourself. And I hope that the nuggets that she imparts to you will find a resting place where you have been looking for an answer. I think that she may have your answer today. Pastor Joanne, welcome to my show. I know you, and let me just say this, guys, she's divified all the time. Now she's a little understated today, but if you go to her social media, you're going to see that she's always divified. And I'm just so happy to be able to call you my friend, first of all. You are a woman of God who, once I met you, I felt a connection, and you've not changed since I've met you. And to me, that's high cotton, because we are always changing, but you've not lost the essence of who you were when I met you. And I just want to say up front, thank you for being brave. Thank you for being vulnerable, because you don't know what I'm going to ask you. But thank you for coming today. I said that you're from Durham, North Carolina, and you're the senior pastor of Divine Grace Worship Center. Yeah. What I want to do is kind of go back in time a little bit and talk with us about how you came to ministry.
First of all, thank you and for inviting me to be a part of your kitchen talk. And I'm so honored to be called your friend and for you to be a part of my life. You are an outstanding young woman that I've just come to love and to just admire all the things, your bravery and all the things that you've endeavored and your tenacity to push forward. I just admire that. I preached my initial sermon in December 12th of 1982. Back during a time when it wasn't popular for women to be ministers in a Baptist church. And it wasn't an easy road because, like I said, I was a lead key person in my home church ministry. And it wasn't popular for women to be talking about preaching. However, I felt compelled and almost pushed and forced to preach after going through a childhood of experiencing dreams and just imagining myself preaching and pretending to preach to the trees and outside in the yard and preaching to my friends. We played church and I was a preacher and all that stuff, and not really understanding what was happening back in that time. As I said, there was no not popular for women ministers. So I didn't have anyone to mentor me or to help me to understand what I was going through. I was going to different pastors and trying to, I was having these dreams. I could see myself in big arenas, standing before a lot of people preaching. And the thing about that is I'm not an out front person. A lot of people think, oh, she just loves the camera, she loves to be out front. But I'm a very take the back seat. I like to work in the background. I like to see things happen and make it happen from the background. So I'm not an out front person at all. But I saw myself always in standing before audiences, speaking and I guess preaching. And later in the years, I began to have more and more dreams. I was troubled in my spirit, and I finally came to realize God is calling me to preach. It just got in my spirit. God is calling. I just knew it. I can't explain it. And I always tell people, if you just know, it's something you can't explain. The calling of God. You just know that you've been called. It's the experience that you go through. My experience. So I really, when I accepted the call, it was strange. I was at my job. I worked at Duke University. And I'd been there for several years, and I was sitting at the computer. Back in those days, a computer, filled up half a room. So I was sitting at this giant computer, And I type all day long, and I'm sitting there typing, and I had my headphones in listening to music. And all of a sudden, the music that I was listening to, it kind of faded out of my ear, and that song faded out. And Shirley Caesar's song, Go, it's an old song, Go, I think it was said Go. It came in my ear, and the song just began that song started playing, and I heard the voice of God say, Go, through that song. And I snatched the earphones down. I'm like, what happened? And that song continued to play over and over. And from that, I just knew that God was calling me to preach. And, I brought this to my pastor, and, he tried to discourage me. So just pray about it, maybe, a little while later, if you still feel this way, we'll talk about it. And so he kept putting me off and saying, just trying to discourage me from that, because that wasn't popular. And the more I was discouraged from it, the more intense the push to go forward became. And until the point that I finally had to go to my pastor and said, look, this is something I've got to do. It's almost like I've got to do it or die. And if you're not going to be willing to open up the doors here, let me do it here, then I'm going to have to go and find somewhere somebody will let me preach my initial sermon. I've got to preach. I've got, it's like I was giving birth to a baby that was ready to be born, and it had to be born. And so finally he agreed with, not, total agreement with me, but he decided to, let me go forth. And again, I said, I preached my initial sermon on December the 12th, 1982. I was almost full term carrying my baby, my son, Jaime, which was another big, controversy. How are you going to preach? You're full pregnant. I said, I don't know, but this is what God is saying. Great word of prophecy came forth to me on that day that I preached concerning this child that I was carrying, that I wasn't just carrying a child, but I was carrying a man-child full of the word that was anointed from my womb to carry the word, and that he would go speak to masses of people, and he would be a great influence to his generation. And truly, I saw that come to pass in my son, Jaime. Every word that was spoken came to pass. And so that's how I got here. It wasn't by choice. I said it was by no other choice. I didn't have another choice. God didn't give me that choice. It was like, you do it or you die. I tell everybody, I didn't go willingly. I didn't go willingly.
So you didn't go willingly, Pastor Joanne?
No.
But when I listen to your story, there's so many nuggets that jump out at me. I've had other people say to me, I've been teaching since I was a little girl. They would arrange their animals, their stuffed animals, their toys, and they would be teaching. But, I think you're the first person that said to me, I have been speaking, I've been preaching since I was a little girl. Mm-hmm. And that's so significant, because lots of times we know what the calling is on our life, but we're not able to maybe bring it forth the way we think that we should. And, even with your work as a pastor, we're in a different time than when you were trying to preach your initial sermon. You were talking to the Baptist minister that you were under. We're in a different space now. And so even being, whether you're a teacher or you're a minister or pastor, all of that's done so totally different now.
Absolutely.
And I think that, that's sometimes the struggle with how do you do that? But also, you were a strong Black woman. You were able to advocate for yourself. You didn't stop. And that's a nugget that I want folks to get from your story. You were persistent.
Yeah.
You kept knocking on the door, and eventually the door opened, but you kept knocking. Absolutely. And I think that's an important message. But at the same time, I want to swing us back to, you were basically 9 months pregnant.
Yes.
Now, when you first started knocking on the door with your pastor, were you already pregnant at that point?
Probably not, because this process took about 2 or 3 years to get to actually preaching my initial sermon. So no, I was not pregnant at that time, and wasn't even really thinking about having a child at that time, because I had remarried. And so my children at that time, my older children, they were like probably 7 and 8 or something like that. So the idea of having another child was not even on the radar.
Okay. And because what I find fascinating is that you're telling me it was 2 to 3 years you had that burning and that urgency, and you have been talking to your pastor, and he was kind of putting you out because, again, it wasn't very popular for women to preach in Baptist churches, and particularly at that time. But you kept being persistent. But as you were continuing to knock, a seed was being implanted.
Absolutely.
A seed was being implanted. You still knocking on a door.
Right.
That it seems like you can't get the door open. And was it one of my favorite scripture, seek and you shall find, knock and the door shall be open for you. So you were seeking, if you think about it, you were seeking for 2 to 3 years.
Right.
Then the urgency got so in you, as you said, it was you had no other choices. It's either, you told me, it's either you're going to do this or you're going to die. It's like it becomes all consuming, almost like a fire, and you just
absolutely.
It's just like this all the time.
Yeah. Absolutely. That's exactly where I was.
And then you're pregnant, though. We fast forward. You're pregnant. And then you hear the song Shirley Caesar Go. Now you listen to some other stuff, and then all of a sudden that comes in the headphone, go. And then you hear a voice like go. Right. And then it's like you keep hearing that song. And so you're back again advocating for yourself. And then the pastor's like, okay. It's almost like he just threw up his hands.
Absolutely.
But then you're almost full term. And for those who are spiritual people, you hear us talking about birthing something, you know, and to me, it was like you birthed 2 things at the same time.
Yes.
You birthed your ministry, but then you birthed your child 7 weeks later. And I'm looking at the dates. December 12th, 1982. And I think you told me it was December the 21st.
It was actually the 27th. I have another son born on the December the 21st, and I always get their birthdays mixed up. But Jaime was on December 27th.
So 15 days later. 15 days later.
Yes.
You birthed Jaime. So now, my first question is, how does it feel to think about it through my lens that I'm using, to realize that God birthed 2, I'm going to say 2 ministries at the same time. What would become your ministry, and then the ministry that Jaime had while he was with us. How does, when you think about it from that perspective, what does that feel like? What do you think?
It was mind-blowing. It was amazing to me that, first of all, that God would choose me to carry ministry. And then on the day that I brought forth ministry, he let me know that I was also carrying someone to carry ministry. So, I felt like, I guess I felt a little bit like Mary felt when the angel came to her and told her, you're carrying this special child, and it was just, it was always amazing. And that, especially as I watched him grow and I watched the prophecy come to pass in his life and watched him be exactly what God had called him, said before he was even born. So it was mind blowing to me. And I felt like Mary, I'm the least of women. You chose me for, first of all, to be someone carry your word, and I'm not even, and then I'm carrying someone that's birthing a ministry within the ministry, like you said. So it was really amazing to me.
I heard someone say recently that, and you basically echoed it, when prophecy is given, it's prophecy for the future. It's not for that moment. And, because I've had people provide prophecy for me. And, you sometimes think, oh, it's going to happen right then. It's not happening that moment. It's happening later. And you told me, you said he's going to be an unusual child. He's going to impact the world. And as you told me, he was unique from the very beginning. I know that Jaime's time with us was limited.
Yes.
I understand that it was limited. And when you talk about feeling like Mary, I'm reminded of Christ.
Okay.
You know, he was only with us for a short time period,
Wow.
but he impacted all of us and continues to impact all of us and our future. How do you manage the range of emotions we feel when someone that we care so much about is no longer with us? How do you manage those range of emotions that go from high to low, that change on a dime? How do you manage that?
I'm learning to just take it as it comes. I say a lot of times to my people as I'm, trying to teach them how to just manage the times that we're living in. We have to just wake up that morning and decide how is my day going today? Am I going to be depressed? Am I going to be down? Am I going to be sad? Am I going to be all those negative feelings, or am I going to choose to make this a good day? And so I have to take it a day at a time, a moment by moment. As you say, I wake up some mornings, and there are mornings I wake up and I'm feeling down. I'm feeling all of those things, and I say, I just say to myself, Lord, I need today. I need a couple, just a minute. I need a minute to just feel those things. I can manage. And it's only, I have to preface this. It's only through God, only through my faith that I'm still here. That I still have my right mind. I'm still in my right mind, because to experience a tragedy as I experienced with what I call my promise and my child, he was more than just my son. He was, everything. He was just so many things to me. It has only been my faith and my faith and trust in God that I've been able to handle this. And as I say, I take it day by day. You go through, like I said, this roller coaster. Today I'm at the top and I'm like, okay, I got this, I got it together now. I'm doing okay, and then the next morning I wake up and, the whole world is crashed on me. And so I just have to take it as it comes and deal with those emotions, because I think I have learned to allow myself time to grieve and not grieve in other people's time, because I know a lot of people look at me because I'm able to move forward. They see me so strong, and I'm like, Lord, if they only saw me behind the closed doors every day, because this is an everyday. I deal with this every day. I tell everybody, I deal with it every day. I live with that moment. I got that call, and I deal with the whole process. And and if I allow myself to stay there, certainly I would not be in my right mind. But I have to, not allow myself to stay in that place. I have to allow myself time to cry, grieve, and get those emotions out, because I think there is a healing in that. Because once I release those tears and I release those feelings, I'm able to move a little bit further. I can go another month and not feel those emotions come back. So I've learned how to allow myself the space and the time to grieve. I don't care how saved you are, how strong you are. Death and a tragic as such as I faced, it can knock the wind out of you, and it literally knocked the wind out of me. Everybody tells me there's a book in me that I got to write, including you. But my learning how to deal with grief and loss didn't just happen with my son. It happened with my husband. It began with my husband, a tragedy, after years of being single, and I remarried my husband, and we had 2 sons. 5 years into our marriage, he was killed by a drunken driver in head-on collision. Here I was, Jaime was 3, and my other son was 5 at that time. I'm a new mother again, new in ministry. My faith at that time, it was, I thought I could speak to the mountain and it had to move. Because whatever the word said, my faith was just there. I had so much zeal and so much faith. And then all of a sudden, to have my husband, try one minute he was there, the next minute he's gone. And so my faith was challenged tremendously. I was angry at God for a moment. I'm like, God, what have you done? What have you done to me? I jumped out here, I got married, I had 2 children. Now I'm left here to raise them by myself. And so I went through a real struggle with that, learning how to deal with it. And I was a lot younger then, a lot younger then. So, and my faith was not where it is now. And so I really struggled through that process. Thank God for family and friends that helped me through that. But from that situation, I learned how to rebuild my life and how to deal with the losses in my life, because since then I've had a lot of loss. I've experienced a lot of loss and tragedies. And so it's a process, but you must have a relationship with God. That is the only way that you can deal with grief and loss, those times when, those unexplainable times. You got to have a relationship with God. It's only my relationship with Him. And I totally trust Him. I said, God, I don't understand none of this. Things didn't turn out the way I thought they were going to turn out, but I still trust. I have to trust you. I don't have nothing else. That's why I always tell God, I have no other choice but to trust you through, the good times, the bad times, whether I understand it, whether it makes sense. I trust you, God, with my life. Because when I committed my life to the Lord, everybody that knows me, when I got saved, I went all the way. I mean, I went all the way. I remember making a deal with God. I'm like, God, if you give me time to sow my oats, as you can say, let me do some things I want to do, then I'll give you my life completely, 100%. And God did that. He gave me 2 or 3 years where I just sowed some oats. I sowed some wild oats. But then I heard God say one day, okay, I need you to, it's time to come on in now. And so when I made up my mind to live for God, I mean, I gave up everything. Everybody, I used to I would love makeup and the hair and all that stuff. I gave that all up. I took off all my makeup. I stripped myself of who I was and allowed God to rebuild me back to who He wanted me to be. And people used to say, why you stop wearing your makeup? Why you stop? I said, this is what God is requiring of me. He's asking me to totally surrender everything, and I did. And so my faith in God has I don't have anything else. I'm in it all the way. And so I'm like, God, none of this has made sense my whole life. It's a big question mark. Like what, none of this makes sense, but I trust you because I don't have other choice but to trust you. You never failed me. You brought me through some times I didn't think I would make it through. Mm-hmm. And you walked me through that. And so I just got to still trust you to see what the end gonna be. How you gonna, what's next,
Well, Pastor Joanne, He hasn't left you. And I think when you talk about it's a conscious decision every morning that you make, even now, it's been several years, you are open about, you allow yourself time to grieve. You have good days, you have good weeks, good months, and then, something may trigger and you're not in the same space, but you allow yourself that time. And I think it's so important for people to hear, to give yourself permission. Yeah. Grief is not something that you go, it's a designated time period and then that's it. That's not the way it is. Mm-hmm. Likewise, growing a ministry is not, I've done my trial sermon or my initial sermon, I've got my ministry up and going, and then that's it. There's going to be downs and high lows and, turnarounds and all that. It's not grief in the same sense, but it's the same emotional feelings. Because when you think you're going down the right way, you think you've connected to the right people, and then you find out that you haven't, and you're taking steps back, it's still that emotional challenge that we deal with when we're disappointed or we're hurt by individuals or situations that we thought were going to help our ministry. And instead, it may set us back or it just keeps us at the same place that we're at. Mm-hmm. So I think the fact that you talk about allowing yourself permission and then being very intentional each day. And I thought about the scripture, and you correct me if I say it wrong, but so as a man thinketh, so is he. So that means we have to consciously think about what we want that day to be.
Absolutely. Yes.
Because if we think, this is going to be a day I'm going to cry, I'm just not going to do anything, then I talk about self-fulfilling prophecy. You basically put that out there, and then that's how that day goes.
Yeah.
And then hearing you talk about your faith had been challenged, and but you rebuild your life and you dealt with loss and tragedy in so many different arenas. It made me think about your role as a mentor.
Mm.
I think about these young women or even younger men who may have a desire to enter the ministry, but they're not in a space where it's being received or no one is helping them to cultivate that. And you walk that walk. Because you've known really since you were a little girl that you didn't know what you knew, but you knew that you knew something, that you were supposed to be preaching. And you talk about standing before you saw yourself in the robe and the audience and all of that. I clue in on the fact of you have been giving and nurturing your audience, whether it's the trees, whether it was your classmates, your cousins, your friends, whomever. You have been depositing into people since you were a little girl. And what a unique role to be in. And given all that you've gone through, you still standing.
Still here.
You still here. Yeah. You still here.
Yes.
You're still going forward. And I think about where do you get the wherewithal to do that? Where do you get that strength from to keep pushing?
It's supernatural. It's certainly not in my own strength that I wake up every day and make it through that day. It is the supernatural strength of God that pushes me and carries me, and that's why I tell people it's so important to you not only to have God, but to know that God's got you. Because there have been times when I've given up, I've let go. I'm like, Lord, I can't do this anymore. I'm tired. I can't do this anymore. And, I want to let go, but that's when he just like grabs me. It's like, oh no, you're not, quitting is not an option. You can't let go. No, you're not, and I've literally heard God say, I'm like, okay, I decided I'm going to have a tantrum today. And, he allows me that time. I'm screaming, I'm hollering, I'm fussing, and, a minute away from cussing. I get real. And then I heard God say, okay, time up, wipe your tears. Come on, pull it together. I literally can hear him say that. Okay, get up, dry your face, wipe your tears, pull it together, and keep moving forward. And it's just and a peace will come over me like a flood of just a flood over me. I'll get peace, and I'm like, okay, God, I'll move a little further. But so it's just it's a supernatural strength that comes directly from God to keep me pushing forward and moving forward. Because like I said, there have been many days I didn't want to get out the bed. I didn't want to see the sunshine. I didn't want to get up. I'm like, God, I've had enough. I can't take it anymore. I can't do this anymore. I'm not talking about last year, a couple of years from now. I'm talking about a few days ago. It's a constant, but like I say, I allow myself that time to be human. God allows me that time to be human. I'm not superhuman. I don't pretend to be. They got a lot of people, and I've looked at them like, God, they just seem like they just bounce right back, from everything. And why am I still here? But I allow myself to be human. And, despite of my faith and my strength in the Lord and my, trust in God, I have human moments where I'm just human. I deal with those human fears and emotions, and but it's a part of healing, and it brings strength to me when I allow myself to be human and allow myself to feel those emotions.
Well, thank you. You've heard her, guys. You can reach Pastor Joanne Daniels on Facebook. So Pastor Joanne, until next time, I can't wait to find out later what you pushed your way into and what your practice is. Okay.
Thank you so much for letting me be a part of this. I've enjoyed it.
Thank you also.
All right. God bless you.
God bless you.
Thank you for listening to Talk with TAS with Dr. Teresa A. Smith. For more information on this show and Dr. TAS, you should visit AskDrTAS.com. That's AskDrTAS.com. Talk with TAS is a production of DQ Consulting, LLC. Dr. Teresa Smith, executive producer.